Best part of the day. Ah. Delicious. Well, cheers. Once again, I'm Matt Phillips, tasting room manager from Lynfred Winery, Wheeling, and today we are talking all about foods for the big game on Sunday. So Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday, and when you think about all the different Super Bowl foods that are out there, there's a lot of different things that are going to be coming at us. So we're going to try to find some wines that are going to work well with just about everything you can find on your typical Super Bowl game day table. With that said, we're going to be able to touch on a bunch of different styles of wine as a result of the diversity of the palate. And the wines we're featuring today, we're going to start off with the sparkling Vin de City, your beautiful Prosecco style sparkling. We will then move on to one of our all-time favorites, Sauvignon Blanc 2019. I don't know if you can see it with the glare from my light. Also have Muscat Canelli 2016, Assemblage, which I will be partaking in this evening. Maybe these others too in a little bit. And then Sangria Blanc for something a little bit on the sweeter side. So, all approachable wines, all that are currently available at any of your Lynfred locations. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So, I am admittedly not a very big football fan, but I do get on board with any sort of gathering where you get to sit down on the couch and just stuff your face for a few hours. So, that is my plan always when it comes to game day. I'm just going to hang out at the buffet table. And so the first things first, we've got kind of our staple things that we find on every game day table. Your popcorns, your chips, your pretzels, everything that's going to be sort of furnishing the corners of the buffet table. We'll have some of the big stars that'll come up otherwise, but that's something you're going to find every single time. And for that, a little bit of bubbly goes a long way. So sparkling wine, like this Prosecco style sparkling with our extra brut sparkling Vin de City, is a perfect wine for these really kind of everyday, salty, delicious snacks. And part of the reason is because it refreshes your palate in the process. And the bubbles are also going to kind of brighten the whole experience for us. So as you're chopping down on these chips, the bubbles are going to be sort of lightening the whole experience for you, and then it's also going to refresh that saltiness that's left on the palate. Super delicious with our sparkling Vin de City. Extra brut means that it is even drier than our traditional sparkling brut that we produce. And when we say Prosecco style, this one's going to be drier, but it's also going to be a little bit lighter. It's a little bit less caloric, perhaps, than some of the other sparkling wines on the market. So if you're looking for something that's not going to totally weigh you down for the length of the game, sparkling Vin de City is a nice way to do it. And the beautiful thing with sparkling wines, it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Every single type of food you throw at it pretty much is always going to work with the sparkling because of those bubbles. So we've got our popcorn and our bubbles going, which I always love, but I mentioned before that I absolutely adore the Sauvignon Blanc 2019. So Sauvignon Blanc 2019 is super delicious, and actually I went with two different white wines for this occasion. Let's start with there first, actually. So white wines, it's February, it's currently snowing, and a lot of people think, well, no, this is just red wine season. But much like the sparkling wine, having white wines at your Super Bowl buffet is actually going to help balance out some of the different flavor profiles that are coming your way, because we have things that are going to refresh the palate, but also, in some cases, tone down some of the harsher aspects of the foods that we're consuming. So, take for example, if we get something on the spicier side, I've got something that's going to actually balance that out for us coming up in just a moment. So, Sauvignon Blanc. The other benefit with the Sauvignon Blanc here is that this Sauvignon Blanc exhibits minerality. So minerality is one of those things in the wine industry that's kind of disputed. There's some folks that say minerality doesn't really exist because who's gone around licking stones to really know what it tastes or smells like? But I will give you this challenge. Imagine how concrete smells after a rainfall. Or if you think about sort of the salinity in the air when you go down to the bay. So when you're in a coastal region, you get that little bit of salt from the seawater. And so basically, we're calling minerality anything that doesn't fall in the fruit, herb, or spice camp. So minerality can hold all these other aspects there as far as flavor profiles that's still coming from the earth and not something that we would get from oak aging, perhaps, where you get your leather, your smoke, things like that. So for the Sauvignon Blanc, it's crisp, it's dry, it's refreshing, and it has minerality. Minerality provides pairing flexibility. Something about the soil here in the Midwest actually produces wines that are more mineral in nature, which means Midwestern grown grapes tend to pair even better with food than some of the West Coast alternatives. This one is a West Coast grown Sauvignon Blanc, but also exhibits minerality and delicious with so many different things. And so because of that acidity, because it has that little bit of brightness, and it's going to cut through something that's going to be a little bit heavier. Take, for example, my caramelized onion dip. So this is going to be really intense. You got a lot of flavors going on there. The caramelized onions, actually when I make French onion soup, I use the Sauvignon Blanc as the wine in it because it adds a brightness to the whole experience. But so with the caramelized onions, you got a lot of rich flavors happening there, and it's just going to kind of refresh the palate. So when I have my chips with it, or I was trying to be good tonight, so I also have some purple and white carrots to go along with it as well. But realistically, I mean, Sunday I'm going to be chomping down on a bowl of chips and quite a bit of dip. Going to need something to brighten the palate. So another option here too, when we look at the wing worlds, I know everyone's going to be stocking up on a bunch of wings this Sunday, and so for your Sauvignon Blanc, I would go if you're thinking the dry rub route, or if you've got like a garlic and herb wing that you're going to be going for, save the spice for just a minute. Let's go for the ones that are going to be a little bit softer, maybe for some of us that aren't quite as spice inclined, to go along with the Sauvignon Blanc, because it's going to just sort of marry well, especially if there's a little bit of citrus going on there. That said, if we want to go the spicy route, if you want to add a little bit of heat to your wings, a little bit of an off-dry wine like Muscat Canelli 2016 is a nice way to refresh the palate if you've got quite a bit of spice coming at you. So again, following that same idea of brightening up the whole experience for us, the Muscat Canelli has the added bonus of just a little bit of extra residual sugar. And that residual sugar is going to soften the heat that we get from some of the spicier components of the food, and also from some of the saltier components in the food. So this is where, like, I've got my chicken chili that I made. And for my chicken chili, I'm going to be loading on the hot sauce for this. And so to make sure that I'm not going to completely obliterate my palate for the rest of the night, that little bit of sweetness coming off the Muscat Canelli is just going to cool things down a little bit. The other cool thing with the Muscat Canelli, and it's kind of in that same realm as like Rieslings or Gewürztraminers, you're actually going to see something that's going to work well with something that has a tang to it. So like a really big pretzel with a nice tangy mustard. Super delicious with the Muscat Canelli. It just kind of sets up that whole experience really nicely. Good flavor profiles there. If it's still drinking too sweet for you, and you're either spice averse, or you just want to say, I don't care, sweetness isn't going to do it for me, Sauvignon Blanc is going to be a really nice alternative there in your white wine realm. And now we come to the wine that has been sitting here taunting me as I poured it just a little while ago, and that is our new wine of the month, the Assemblage 2018. Now, Assemblage, or Assemblage, both are acceptable pronunciations. Assemblage is the French word for wine blend, and so, knowing me, I'm going to go for the pronunciation of Assemblage, but if you call it Assemblage, totally fine. What's cool about the Assemblage or Assemblage is that it is a co-fermented blend. So normally when we blend wines, we do fermentation cycle for one grape, fermentation cycle for another grape, let them oak age on their own, and then bring them together right before bottling. In this case, we actually went right from the beginning with Merlot and Syrah all together. And that is where we're getting new flavor profiles that you couldn't achieve with just having the blend of Merlot and Syrah after they've been produced in their own sort of isolated tank. So by bringing it together, high risk, but high reward, because you're also getting all these flavor profiles that you wouldn't be able to achieve on their own. And what's nice here too is that it's got this beautiful jamminess to it. It almost feels like you've got like a plum or dark raspberry jam. It's a little deceptive that way because it's almost smelling slightly sweet. But then when it hits your palate, you get this beautiful presence of tannin, get nice body to it. It's got some good structure, kind of weighs a little bit heavier on the tongue. Good spice note in there, a little bit of leather coming off the oak. So full-bodied, kind of a tough one when you think about, okay, like Thanksgiving, for example, and we've got a bunch of different types of food. If you go too full in body, it's going to overwhelm the palate there. Because of that little bit of fruitiness there. That little bit of fruitiness just tones down that tannin, takes away a little bit of the intensity that might have overwhelmed something else, and instead will make it pair exceptionally well. I think, going back to that caramelized onion dip with the Assemblage, I'm going to be working on that a little bit later for sure. Pigs in a blanket, too. because there's a meatiness to this wine. So there's a smoke, a little bit, almost like, maybe you've never experienced this, but growing up, whenever we'd get like sausage or cabbage from the Polish store, days lingering after in the car always had this kind of residual meaty garlic smell to it. No garlic going on in the Assemblage here, but there's that little bit of meatiness when it hits your palate. Take me right back to sitting in the back of my dad's car and coming home with the cabbage and the Polish sausage for all the family gatherings. Another option that you have here too is, of course, pizza. So we're going to be consuming massive amounts of pizza this Sunday, and Assemblage is really nice because it'll stand up to that meat lover's pizza. Also not going to overwhelm, though, if you're going to go for a margarita pizza or something that has a little bit more of an herb note to it. I think the herb is going to marry nicely with those fruity notes. Now, desserts, as I was kind of doing the research for this, desserts seem to be a sticking point for Super Bowl Sunday. There's not a lot of people that have very strong feelings about desserts like they have about the pigs in a blanket, the wings, the dips. Dips especially. I mean, we talk about, you got your chili cheese dip, which is beautiful with the Muscat Canelli. You've got like guacamole, which I think the Sauvignon Blanc or the Brut or the Vin de City would work well with. We'll also get to the next one, the Sangria Blanc, in a minute when we get into our spicier salsas. When you think about all of those different flavor profiles, so much going on there, and desserts kind of just fall into second realm. That said, I think this with a brownie, can never go wrong with a brownie. I'm always on board with a brownie. I also picked these up today from our friends at Deerfield's Bakery. Little football cookies, and for my Ace Ventura fans, Laces Out. So there we go. That is also going to pair beautifully with any of the wines that we have here today. A little bit of cookie going on here. Alright, so we're up to dessert wine time. That would be our Sangria Blanc. So Sangria Blanc, slightly sweeter white wine base, blended with pear and passion fruit wines. So a lot of tropical notes to it, really bright flavor, and a fair amount of sweetness coming at you. So if you are that inferno hot, I want to completely scald my palate, hot wing eater, Sangria Blanc is going to be a really nice way to tone things down. Also makes a fun cocktail if you want to muddle a little bit of jalapeno, a little bit of lime, and then shake that up over ice with your Sangria Blanc. Nice little heat to it, and it's not going to be too intense for consuming, you know, multiple cocktails through the course of the game. With that said, you could always doctor it up too with a little bit of tequila. Spritzers are also a nice way to do it. So if you took the sparkling Vin de City, pour that into the Sangria Blanc, what that's going to do is not only brighten up all the flavors because you get the bubble action going in there, but because the extra brut style Vin de City is so dry, it's going to tone down some of the sweeter notes in the Sangria Blanc. So again, if you're not the biggest sweet wine fan, it's a nice way to sort of balance things out a little bit for you. Now, we've got two teams playing on Sunday, and I think we should always take a little bit of inspiration from the teams that are playing when it comes to planning our Super Bowl meals. So we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I did have to check my notes just to make sure I got the Buccaneers correct. But I did do a little bit of research here thanks to my group of friends, and I do appreciate them for humoring me as I learn a little bit more about football through this process. But our quarterbacks are going to be facing off on Sunday. From the Chiefs, we have Patrick Mahomes, and then Tom Brady, formerly of the Patriots, now playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Patrick Mahomes, apparently really into ketchup, so if you want to pay homage to Patrick, get the ketchup going on there. Ketchup with the wine pairing. Ketchup's a tough one. So ketchup has that little bit of vinegary quality to it, and vinegar with wine, even though, you know, one begets the other, doesn't necessarily always work that well together. So you might have to tamper it down with, say, like a big piece of potato, like a fry. And then fries, fried foods, sparkling wines, humble food with a otherwise sophisticated wine. Perfect pairing right there. But this guy is like so into ketchup that, I mean, he puts it on mac and cheese. He puts it on like his Thanksgiving dinner. Guy's really, really into ketchup. Now, that said, Tom Brady has a fairly restrictive diet, and doesn't sound like he's the most fun to go like eating food with. He doesn't eat anything from the nightshade family. That's part of his dietary regimen. So he would not be eating ketchup because ketchup has tomatoes. Tomatoes are in the nightshade family. He also apparently had never had a strawberry until recently. My 5-year-old niece has a better palate, I think, than both of these guys, but we can humor him a little bit, maybe get a little bit of strawberry action going in there. So, pairing inspiration, though, I think we need to go back to the teams themselves. So for Kansas City, I love the city of Kansas City, and KC Barbecue is the way to go. KC Barbecue is cool because it has a slight sweetness to it and some tang. So they use molasses in almost all of the Kansas City barbecue sauce recipes. And so, again, coming back to that meaty idea with the assemblage, it's also going to work well with that little bit of sweetness coming off the molasses because we have that tannic structure that's going to balance everything out there for us. And Syrah and barbecue for me is the ideal pairing, and assemblage is a co-fermented blend of Merlot and Syrah. So the Syrah is still pairing up with the barbecue when I have it for my KC barbecue with the assemblage. Now Tampa, I have been to Tampa. I did not get to explore the food scene as much as I would normally in most other cities. And it doesn't immediately make me think of Super Bowl foods, but we have Buccaneers. Buccaneers are pirates. What are pirates concerned about? Scurvy. So, I think the best way to handle that is to take a new dessert option here, and inspiration from the lemon bar, and make a little orange bar. So, got cookie base, orange custard on top, sprinkled with some powdered sugar, and for that, I think Sangria Blanc is going to be a beautiful pairing there. Kind of has that tropical feel. It is Florida after all. I suppose other than being pirates, just being from Florida, probably also oranges might have been the obvious option there, but I'm always thinking in terms of how can I incorporate scurvy prevention into our lesson for the day. Finally, if you are a Patriots fan and you're still a little sore that Tom Brady left to go to Tampa Bay, I do have a cocktail that I think would be perfectly Brady-esque and satisfy the palate of the New Englanders. And so that would be a take on our Cape Cod mimosa. So it is our sparkling cranberry wine with orange juice. Now normally I would always say pour your orange juice first and then put your bubbles on top. So pour your sparkling cranberry over the top of that. But given Brady's desire to see things deflated, I think it'd be best if we pour the sparkling wine first and then pour the orange juice over the top to take a little bit of air out of the bubbles. I hope those of you who are following along found that very droll. But in closing, no matter what you're having or where you're going to be enjoying Super Bowl Sunday, make sure that you've got a good glass of Lynfred wine, your favorite snacks, and your favorite spot on the couch. With that, I'll say cheers, and let's hope for a great game on Sunday. At the very least, I know I'll be drinking through it. We'll see y'all soon.